Steven Avery would dethrone Adnan Syed as the most talked about convict in America, before Steven served an 18-year prison sentence for a sexual assault conviction that DNA evidence later proved he never committed. Before the public radio program Radiolab aired an episode titled Are You Sure back in 2013, before a petition was created on the White House website and signed by over 100,000 people, also a second petition on change.org with over 300,000 signatures in hopes of him getting a fair trial. Now at the time of this recording, Steven Avery is the talk of the town, and by that I mean the internet. His Netflix series, it is blowing up, and the guy probably doesn't even know it as he's sitting in his prison cell. Now growing up, this guy spent a lot of time with family. He was a bit of an outsider in his small town of Wisconsin, and the guy, well, he spent most of his time on the family junkyard. Yeah, they had an automobile scrapyard, and that's where he would spend his time. He did get into some trouble. He broke and entered into a bar. He stole $14 and like some beer. He also set a cat on fire. For those acts, he blamed himself for being young, stupid, and for hanging out with the wrong people. In both cases, he pleaded guilty. By now, the man had fallen on the wrong side of the law and wasn't popular with those associated with the sheriff. He was then sentenced to 32 years in prison for a sexual assault charge that he was later found to be innocent for. He was then free, but went back to jail on new charges. My name is Michael McCrudden, documenting the life of Steven Avery prior to fame, here for you on Before They Were Famous. Now this guy is blowing up, he is the talk of the town, and by that I mean the internet, so this is a pretty popular story. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below who you want to see on Before They Were Famous, After They Were Famous, and Before They Were Dead. Alright, let's get back to the story. Steven Allen Avery was born on July 9th, 1962 in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. Now this is a half-hour drive or so from Green Bay. The Avery family, they grew up on their own road, known as Avery Road. The family was large with many members, young and old. But they didn't integrate well with the others in the town. They kind of stuck together and did their own thing. Now Steven Avery, he was known by his family as being a very caring man, but to outsiders, well, he was seen as a bit of a troublemaker, and for good reason. The man had a bit of a track record. In school, he wasn't the sharpest in the class, and he was tested and scored an IQ of 70, which is classified as a borderline mental deficiency. The family still owns the Avery Auto Salvage, a junkyard where Steven recalls spending his childhood messing around with the cars. He would tear them apart, he would fix them up as well, he would enjoy the radio, he'd play hide and go seek. A normal childhood, I guess, if you grow up on a junkyard. At the age of 18, Steven and his friends, they got bored one night. They decided to break into a bar. Steven broke a window, went inside, he got his hands on $14 worth of quarters. He also got a 6-pack of beer and some cheese sandwiches. And well, for that he was caught and charged with burglary, and he spent 10 months in prison. Then he got himself in trouble with the law for a second time, this time while drinking with friends and family. A pestering cat came near the group. Steven and his friend then came up with the cruel and idiotic idea of drenching the poor cat in gasoline and throwing it in an open fire. The police were called, and Steven confessed to his crime and was sent to prison for animal cruelty. Now by this time, Steven had already met the woman he would go on to marry, Laura Matheson, and while he was locked up in prison on his second charge, well, he missed the birth of their first child, Rachel. When his second child, Jimmy, was born, he was home, he was out on bail, but he would soon get in trouble again. His cousin, Sandy Morris, had been making fun of Steven, telling a story about him masturbating in public on a car. Now Steven, he was so upset with all the teasing, all the name calling he had gotten from this fictional story, well, he decided to run Sandy off the road with his car. He then came out with a gun and began pointing it in her direction. The gun wasn't loaded. But it turns out Sandy's husband was Deputy County Sheriff William Morris. Now around this time, he had certainly pissed off the wrong people, but he had his own priorities to take care of. His wife Lori, she gave birth to twins, both William and Steven Jr., and well, he was delighted with his growing family. Then their whole town was flipped upside down when one upper class woman from their small town went for a jog along the Michigan lake, and all of a sudden, well, she was sexually assaulted and beaten up. The reserve deputy who took the case, Judy Dvorak, was a close friend of Sandy Morris. She was also a bit of an enemy of Steven's. As she spoken to the woman who had been beaten to a pulp, she described her attacker, and Judy wrote down that the description, it sounded a lot like Steven Avery. Now Steven, he had alibis, he was elsewhere for the day of this attack, but none of that held up in court, and at the age of 23, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison, 18 of which he served, on the charges of sexual assault, false imprisonment, and attempted murder. Now his family would come visit him at Green Bay Correctional Institute, where Steven would stand by his word that he was innocent. Eventually, the Wisconsin Innocent Projects took Avery's case on, and he was eventually exonerated of the rape charges through DNA testing. Following his release in 2003, well, Steven, he was looking for a little payback, and he filed a federal court court case against the county. He also went after the sheriff and the district attorney, and he was looking for $36 million. Then on October 31st, 2005, photographer Teresa Halbach was scheduled to meet with Steven Avery at his home on the grounds of the Avery's Auto Salvage. She was meant to be there to photograph a car to be put into the auto trader, but that day she went missing. Then on March 18, 2007, after the missing woman's car and her charred bone fragments were found on the Avery salvage yard, again Steven would be facing a lengthy prison sentence. He was given life without parole as well as an additional 5 years for the murder of this woman. Also, his nephew Brandon Dassey, he was also sent away. He was like the accomplice. But his story is being watched by hundreds of thousands of people day in, day out right now on Netflix, and everyone's wondering, was he innocent this time as well? Now for the rest of the story, I don't know, you might have to go watch that show on Netflix, Making a Murderer, because that's all I got for you here on Before They Were Famous. My name is Michael McCrath, thanks for checking out my personal channel. This one was a little different, but this story is blowing up. El Chapo, that one I'm working on, it should be up next, hopefully, probably. But yeah, be sure to browse the channel. I do all sorts of videos here on Before They Were Famous, After They Were Famous, Before They Were Dead. Also, I do 25 random hip-hop facts, random porn facts, all that good stuff. So there's something for everyone. Be sure to browse, check it out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Also, let me know in the comments down below, do you think Steven Avery is innocent? Let me know down below.